drill. So in the event that the fire alarm does go off, please make your way downstairs and out of the building to the far end of the car park. And the fire marshal is Mrs. Hall, who sat right there. And this is a public meeting, and I haven't read this for a while because we've sort of not had members of the public actually in, but this is a public meeting and members of the public are welcome to listen to the debate today, but unless registered to speak as a speaker are not able to take part and speak. And just to let you know as well that the meeting is being live streamed to Facebook and YouTube. So particularly a reminder for members and any registered speakers that please, before you speak, can you make sure you turn your microphones on? That way it will be picked up. If you don't, I will interrupt you, okay, and ask you to do so and make sure everybody can hear what is being said. So in terms of how the planning applications are presented, we have a specific order that they do follow, which is the case officer presents their report. We then have our registered speakers who come forward, and I will invite you forward as and when the right time. And we also have one registered speaker who's coming in on Teams. So again, I will invite you in when it's your turn. At the conclusion, members of the committee, will be able to question each speaker on points of clarity, just to make sure they've understood what you've said. And at the conclusion of the debate on each application, members will vote and come to a decision. So I would also just ask people, if you'd be kind enough, to remind you that it is obviously essential that we give our full attention to what is being said and we're not distracted. So can I ask that all mobile devices are set to silent? And also in the case of members of the committee, that please could I ask you to refrain from looking at your mobile phones so you're not distracted or it doesn't give appearance to applicants or supporters, objectors or watching members of the public of not paying attention. That'd be really helpful. Thank you very much indeed. So I'm going to ask, we have some officers and sitting on the table and Vice Chair, which is Councillor Pearce, so I'm just going to ask them if they'd be kind enough just to introduce themselves and their role. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I'm David Fairbairn. I'm Head of Legal Services and Monitoring Officer and Legal Advice to the committee this morning.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Councillor Terry Pearce. I'm Vice Chairman of the DM&L Committee. And I'm also the ward member for Mary Tavy Ward. Thank you.
Good morning, I'm Pat Weimer. I'm Head of Development Management for the Council.
I'm Catherine Minabassi, Case Planning Officer for South Hams and West Devon.
I'm Catherine Hall from Democratic Services West Devon.
Good morning, and my name is Barry Ratcliffe, and I'm the member for Exbourne Ward, and also a member of this committee.
Tony Beach, Oakhampton North.
Diana Morris, Burrital Ward. Nikki Hayworth, Chagford.
James Spetke, Tavistock South East member.
Rick Cheadle, Dr. Monacorum, substituting for Mark Renders, who's ill.
Paul Vashon from Oakhampton South.
Terry Southcott from Bristol Ward.
Thank you. And we also have officers at the back who are helping out with the IT and the live stream and generally keeping everything going, digitally speaking. Just to really give a bit of advice is that I am proposing to switch on the planning applications item A and item B around. There are some traffic problems with people being able to get here because I think there's been an accident or something in Plymouth, and it has caused delays, particularly for the planning officer, and that may also have delayed one of the registered speakers. So as everybody is present for the second application, I'm going to bring that one forward to swap the order around. Okay, so we will start off with the agenda. Number one, apologies for absence, please, Mrs. Hall.
Thank you, Chair. We've got apologies from Councillor Mott, of whom Councillor Hayworth is substituting, and Councillor Renders and Councillor Cheadle is substituting for him. Thank you.
Thank you. And item 2, so declarations of interest. And in accordance with the Code of Conduct, members are invited to declare any disclosable pecuniary interests, other registerable interests and non-registerable interests, including the nature and extent of such interests they may have in items to be considered at this meeting. So any declarations? Councillor Cheadle.
Thank you, Chair. I declare an interest in the application on Axtown Lodge, Green Lane. I chair the Parish Council Planning Committee. I will speak as the ward member to that application and then abstain from the vote.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Councillor Pearce?
Thank you, Chairman. I declare a personal interest in both applications as a member of the Management Board of the Devon Building Control Partnership.
Councillor Ratcliffe?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I'm also a member of the Devon Building Control Partnership. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. You all? No. Item 3 is items requiring urgent attention. I don't have any at this time. Item 4 is confirmation of minutes of the meeting held on the 14th of December 2021. That's last year, believe it or not. They can be found on pages 1 to 14 of your agenda. Members, are you happy that I sign those as a true and accurate record? Yep, lovely. Thank you very much. So now we move to item 5, the planning applications, and we will go straight to 253021 full, which is Harling Farm, Beer Alston, and the planning officer, Ms. Miller-Bassay, is that correct if I pronounced your surname correctly?
Catherine Miller-Bassay.
Ms. Bassay, right, sorry, my apologies. Over to you, please, for your presentation. Thank you.
So the application is at Harling Farm, Bear Alston. This is the site location. The area lies within open countryside, described as open inland plateau. The site is beyond any settlement. It is adjacent to a public right-of-way, and it is within the Tamar Valley area of outstanding natural beauty. The proposal involves a covered equestrian arena measuring about 70 metres long, 22 metres wide, with a ridge height of 8.5 metres. There would be 12 roof lights, up to 80 solar panels, rainwater recycling, and an accessible concrete pathway from the parking area, which you can see to the bottom right of the screen. These are the proposed elevations. So the roof would comprise cement sheeting. The concrete walls would be clad at a high level with natural timber. In terms of the site itself, the building would be located in that corner, and this photo is looking northwest. So the ground levels drop substantially to that corner of the field. And you can see that if you turn around to look to the top of the hill, the land rises quite substantially towards the road. You can see at the end of that lane there a field gate, which is where the building would be sited. Between the two parallel fences, that is the proposed pathway between the car park, which is sort of behind the where you would be standing in this photo to the right-hand side. So you can see where the field gate is, how the land levels dip substantially. You can also see in the distance some large buildings of an agricultural appearance. These two photos are the public right-of-way adjacent to the application site at the end of that tarmac lane we saw in the previous photo. As you can see in these photos again how the ground levels change. So the proposed building would be sited at the lowest ground level within the site and would be slightly excavated into the ground, which you can see just about with that red dashed line. There would be a proposed new hedge bank to the northeast of the building. And we can also see to the left of the photo an approximation of the heights of the adjacent buildings on the other side of the public right-of-way, which are down farm. The greatest excavation would be 3.3 metres at the eastern corner. In terms of representations, the parish council is in support of the application. There are another 5 letters of support and 1 letter of objection. It mainly deals with traffic, visual impact, noise, lighting, and neighbouring amenity and drainage. In terms of consultations, with the exception of the AUMB officer and landscape specialist, we've had no standing objections from consultees following amendments and receipt of additional information. In terms of the landscape specialist and the AUMB officer, we have further slides on this. There was a request for a landscape value impact assessment, which was not submitted, and their objections are based on visual harm to the character and appearance of the landscape and special qualities of the AUNB. As an update, the AUNB officer yesterday queried my previous assessment of the proposal as major development in the AUNB. I subsequently revised my view in light of point C of paragraph 177 of the MPPF in terms of the extent to which the impact can be moderated. So I will discuss that in a later slide. So in my view, the proposal does not comprise major development in the AUNB. However, the councillor's attention is drawn to the AUMB officer's view that the proposal does constitute major development for those reasons, that the development is not in the public interest, no reason why it should be located specifically within the AUMB, and it does not enhance the AUMB in that officer's opinion. So the proposal would be acceptable in terms of horse-related development in the countryside and other strategic objectives and policies which support health and well-being and accessible rural facilities. The key issue is the impact on the landscape and the AUNB. So the proposal involves a very large footprint of approximately 1,600 square metres and would be substantial in size and sited in an area devoid of built form. However, a number of factors do combine to reduce the visual impact, including its proximity to a cluster of buildings to the southwest, which have an agricultural appearance. The local topography, in that the proposed building would be sited at the very lowest ground level, and the land rises significantly to the north and northwest, which would diminish the visual impact, as was seen in previous slides. So the ridge height of the proposed arena would be 132 metres above sea level, and the ground level at the top of the hill would be higher than that. In terms of proposed mitigation, the building would be excavated up to 3.3 metres below the ground level at one corner. The adjacent hedge would be maintained at 5 metres. Other existing hedges would be enhanced and new hedge banks would be planted. This is considered to render the scheme acceptable in terms of its visual impact. And as such, in my view, the proposal would not comprise major development in AUMB terms. Onto the planning balance, the scheme, as I said, would be considered acceptable in principle. The landscape specialist and AUMB officer do uphold their original objections. There would be some harm to the landscape and AUMB. However, various factors as listed before would substantially reduce this visual impact. The scheme would have substantial benefits which would weigh in favour of the scheme, and those are the positive physical and mental health outcomes for children with disabilities. This has been evidenced through the planning process by letters from the Riding for the Disabled charity and from the NHS. There are further benefits arising from the scheme in terms of accessible rural facilities for health and well-being for diverse sectors of the community. Some employment would arise during the operation and construction phases, and there would be increased footfall to the adjacent amenities such as the farmhouse, shop and cafe. And on balance, my view is that these benefits combine to outweigh the harm to the protected landscape and would justify the proposal. As such, my recommendation is to approve the scheme subject to conditions.
Thank you. Any questions, members? Councillor Cheadle.
Thank you, Chair. Your report references several times the use of this for disabled children riding. Is that an exclusive use, or is it an equestrian facility for anyone that wants to use it, but it also includes disabled children?
So the purpose is primarily for children through the Riding for the Disabled charity. However, it would also be open to members of the public or individuals or riding schools. I have recommended a condition which would control numbers of users and staff at any one time, and that would help with in terms of neighbouring amenity and parking and that sort of thing.
But you have presumably no information on what the proportional use is for disabled children versus members of the public.
The prime purpose of the arena is for children with disabilities, so that they can ride all year long, because the benefits of riding to those children are seen to be considerable in terms of mobility, so physical benefits and mental well-being. And currently there are not considered to be sufficient opportunities in the local area all year long.
Mr. Warner, do you want to?
Councillor Cheadle, perhaps that might be it. If you need more information in terms of proportions, perhaps that might be a question that would be addressed to the agent once they've spoken.
Councillor Moyes.
Will there be any music involved in this arena?
There's been no proposal for sound or music, no.
Councillor Pearce.
Thank you. Could we go back to the slide? Sorry. Could we go back to the slide, please, that shows the ridge height and the land level? Please. Whoa. Going forward.
Did you want the drawing or the text?
I wanted the text, please, because I've got a query whether the difference is right. You say the ridge height of the proposed arena will be 132 metres, and then the ground level of 4th Street to the northeast lies at 135.3. What is approximately 11.8 metres higher than proposed?
The ground level at the top of the hill along 4th Street would be 11.8 metres higher than the proposed ground level, or 3.3 metres higher than the ridge of the building.
Right, okay, thank you. And could we go back to the photograph or the montage that shows the roof of the building with the roof lights, please, which was fairly early on. Right. Now, is that the actual roof lights? Are they overlooking the existing farm buildings and the temporary accommodation, the other side of the lane, please?
The roof lights as such wouldn't be overlooking anybody because they're well above head height.
Yeah, the reason for my question is that across the valley, there's a ridge of land that goes across, and if there's internal lights on in the evening, could be considerable light pollution from those that will be seen from across the valley. The photographs you've shown is all the area around the building. There is nothing to the effect. If we were standing in the field as we were on the site visit, looking down farm and then across the valley, the visual impact from across the valley could be quite significant. With that number of roof lights, if you've got strong light inside in the hours of darkness. The question is, which way do they face that way? The majority of them, because the other ones you've got solar panels as well. The reflections, because of the position on the side of the hill of this proposed building, will have quite a significant impact.
In terms of the solar panels, they're specified to be non-reflecting. In terms of the skylights, one roof slope is facing southwest and the other is facing northeast. The building would be considerably hidden because it would be down in the dip. In terms of light coming through upwards, the internal lighting we assume would be down lighting, but there is a recommended condition in terms of external lighting, which is relating to ecology and also neighbouring amenity. So there's potential to amend that condition so that we can look at dark skies, but equally there are other dwelling houses in the vicinity, so it wouldn't be a completely dark sky.
I think you've missed the point actually. When we were standing in the field looking across Down Farm, you've got a ridge across the valley, and that will show up. So I'm just wondering whether the roof lights will be having any shading or whether it will be clear glass.
I think the roof lights are there because we have a policy on carbon reduction, and if you have sufficient light coming in from the sky, then we don't need to use so much electricity for lighting. However, obviously in this case you've got the solar panels, so it's something that we could look at conditioning potentially.
I do have a couple of questions, and I will also pose one of them to the agent as well. In your report, you talk about there's no landscape visual impact assessment included, and you'd requested it. Was there a reason given as to why that hasn't been included?
After I went onto site and I saw how significantly the ground levels do change, I realised that the building would not have such an impact from a distance because it would be quite well hidden by the changing ground levels. And as such, I requested further information, including photographs and ground levels for a wider area to show the building in greater context. And I also travelled around the site and tried to get photos from different angles along the road and whatever to try to judge how much of an impact there would be. And I felt that we could make a informed planning judgment on the information that was submitted.
Second question, which is, well, you've explained in your report how you would reduce or how the application would reduce the visual impact, but could you explain how it would enhance the AONB, which I think is part of what is required?
Yeah, so this scheme itself has the enhancements to the adjacent existing hedge banks and the new proposed hedge banks. And then within the wider land ownership of the applicants in the blue outlined area, there's a significant amount of countryside enhancement. And this would be conditioned if the council is minded to approve this application.
Any other questions for the planning officer at the moment? Okay, if excuse me, if not, then we will move on to the registered speakers. So our first speaker is Miss Nicola Quick, who is coming in via Teams, and she is a supporter. Just wait for, yeah, well done, you're here. If you'd like to unmute yourself, wonderful. Do you want to just do a quick sound check?
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you. That's wonderful. Thank you very much, and hope you can hear us okay. Right, we'll have 3 minutes to make your presentation. If members have any questions at the end, then they will be able to ask you at the end. Okay, in your time, when you're ready, off you go. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. and Mrs. Richardson purchased Harling Farm in 2019, extending to 43 acres, and have invested heavily to improve the farm, running an agricultural and equestrian enterprise, with farm diversification projects to ensure its farm's future survival. The applicants have been working with the AONB from the outset and were asked by the AONB Tomorrow Landscape Partnership to be and have become a nodal farm. Tomorrow uses nodal farms to share best practice and as a benchmark for other farms to aspire to. The applicant's son is registered disabled with complex needs and rides the Duchy Riding for the Disabled Association, also known as the RDA. As part of his and the other disabled riders' physiotherapy regime, riding several times a week is essential. Duchy College make their indoor arena available for RDA riders 3 hours a week during term time only. The RDA ponies are kept at Harling Farm during the holidays, thus a suitable facility would enable continued riding throughout the year. We appreciate it's a large building, but the standard size dressage arena is 60 metres by 20 metres, plus space for the riders to mount safely with specialist equipment like hoists. It's indoors, as the riders need a controlled environment away from the weather elements, mirrors to assist riders with their position, and indoors prevents reflection, and there will be less noise impacts from lessons and light impacts. Essentially an agricultural building, its location was chosen to utilise the topography and establish hedge boundaries, which provides natural screening. The arena will be cut into the ground to limit visual impact. All soil excavated will be retained on site to create 1,000 metres of new hedgerows and planted with native species. The arena will support on-site horse liveries, the needs of the disabled riding community, and there's local demand and support from over 100 local horse owners and equestrian groups. The local neighbourhood plan refers to encouraging consideration of the disabled community members when providing new or enhancing existing local facilities. The proposal is to install anti-reflective solar panels on the roof with internal battery storage, which will generate at least 60% of the farm's energy and up to 70% of water usage, collected from rainwater harvesting tanks. The proposal does not affect the public right-of-way which passes down the owner's lane. We have satisfied all requirements, including biodiversity net gain, and addressed all consultees' concerns, except for the AONB and landscape officer. We cannot understand what a landscape visual impact assessment will provide over and above the extensive reports, surveys, photographs, cross-sectional drawings already provided, apart from costing the applicant even more thousands of pounds. In conclusion, we kindly ask the committee to support this application, which promotes equality and inclusion on a personal and wider level, with applicants that are passionate about the AONB and building an inclusive business which will become a local success story for farm diversification and meet the needs of the local community. Thank you.
Thank you. You answered my question about the LVIA. Members, do you have any questions from Squid? Right, Councillor Moyes and Councillor Cheadle.
Could you just clear something up that came up at the site visit? I'm assuming that when you referred to the nearest indoor school, it was at Cholwell Lewdown, not Cholwell Mary Tavy.
Oh, I would need to double check. I don't know it off the top of my head.
I think that's probably right.
Okay.
The other thing is, what is the surface of the arena? Would it need watering to keep any sort of dust down?
Not to my understanding that it will need watering. To be honest, I haven't actually agreed a specific surface. But obviously it's not quite the same as an outdoor arena where that would obviously be visible and obviously water logging and all the rest of it because it's indoors.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Cheadle.
Thank you. I understand this venture is a business venture. It's not a charity. Am I right?
Yeah, it is.
Well, there must be an accompanying business plan, and I'm not interested in delving into that, but I am interested in what proportion of the people using this facility will be disabled versus the proportion who are not disabled.
So there will be the on-site liveries, as well as obviously having open to the public to book. From discussions with the applicant, we think it would be about 50% use of disabled riders, and then the other 50% would be on-site liveries and people in the local community.
Thank you.
Anyone for any questions? That's quick. Councillor Spatke.
Thank you, Chair. May I ask, does the existing site contain any disabled toilet facilities?
I believe so. I think the farm shop that we got consented last year has a disabled toilet facility there. I would need to double check, but I believe so.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Just for clarity, the flooring isn't a material planning consideration. Okay, so or the surface covering wouldn't be. Okay, thank you very much indeed for your time. It's great.
Thank you.
The case was, we can confirm that there are disabled toilets within the farm shop or the farm shop building.
Thank you. Next we have Councillor Lamb from Beer Ferries Parish Council. If you'd like to come up and just press the button in the front of the microphone there, which will turn it on, and you will then have your 3 minutes. And I know you know the drill, you've been here before. So over to you when you're ready.
Thank you, Madam Chair and fellow councillors. Beer Ferries Parish Council unanimously supports this application by a young couple who have worked miracles on this derelict farm, which they took over in 2019, and who have heavily invested in this property. Unusually, the parish planning committee visited this site under the same rules as the district have for such visits, and following that was a formal meeting and their recommendations for approval. This is an isolated peninsula with few recreational facilities, but there are over 300 horses kept within the parish. The owners will benefit from this school throughout the year for teaching children, adults, and those, of course, with disabilities, not forgetting the horses. I understand that the nearest comparable full-time facilities are at Exeter. There are some at Duchy, but with limited access. The application complies with our neighbourhood plan and with the JLP, especially with regard to expansion of business premises in the rural areas, which respect the character of the existing buildings. This building is a typical farm barn, and there are many of a similar size in the area. Local employment, where local opportunities are few. Already they have taken on 4 young people under the Kickstart scheme. Reduce the carbon footprint, with many riders being able to walk their horses to the site rather than transporting not only outside the parish but outside the district. You should know that the AONB are using the farm under their Tamara project, and they have been awarded a grant under the AONB Farming in a Protected Landscape scheme. I wonder if the left and the right hand know what they're doing. The government has urged farmers to diversify, and this must be a classic case where the future of this family depends upon such policies. The suggestion that should be developed outside the area is bizarre. Where? East Devon? That would not be very economically viable. Finally, policy CVV 31 of the JLP states that horse-related developments in a rural area will be supported and lays out the conditions. I suggest, Madam Chairman, that the applicant complies with these, especially about the land. The land is grade C. I ask that you consider approving the applicant's proposed large investment by approving this application today. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Anybody got any questions for Councillor? Councillor Cheadle.
A very quick one. Thank you very much for that. When you were drawing up your neighbourhood plan, was this part of it, or did this come along after you had signed the neighbourhood plan off?
Oh, a long time after the neighbourhood plan, but it complies with the parts of the plan.
Councillor Pearce.
Thank you, Chairman. Good morning, Councillor Lamb. I'm surprised that in some respects that the parish council supported this so wholeheartedly, given that areas of outstanding natural beauty should be given the highest level of protection. Do you feel that this further building on top of what has already been granted at this site does not cause an issue with the AONB?
It doesn't cause an issue with the parish council, Madam Chairman. It's hidden. The applicants have taken, I think, every step to lower it down below the height of the road hedge. The other buildings, they're also going in for more vegetation and trees to hide the building. And I think it fits in, makes the farm economically viable.
Thank you.
Any more? No, okay, thank you very much, Councillor Land. If you'd be kind enough just to turn the microphone up, if you press the button. Thank you. Lovely. Wonderful. Okay, so now I should like to invite the ward member, which is Councillor Peter Crozier, if you would like to speak. And you, of course, have your 5 minutes. Again, when you're ready, your time will start. Thank you.
Madam Chairman, thank you very much. Committee, today you have a decision to make, which Brian Lamb has described with that has the full support of the Ferrers Parish Council and its neighbourhood plan. It is sad that the landscape officer from South Hams has not been able to support this. I don't know if he visited the site. If he had, he probably would have done. The AONB officer is hiding behind section 177 of the National Planning MPPF, which limits development in the national parks and AONB. However, the main point of those who attended the site visit was its effect of the height within the landscape, and has been demonstrated by the planning officer. The height is well below the ridge behind. And the field is surrounded by a hedge, and the hedge is not less than 2 metres, and therefore that hides it even more. And below the shed, there's another high hedge, 5 metres I'm told, which is a further mitigating factor. However, in the parish, in the last 3 years, we've had 2 large agricultural buildings being given permission with no landscaping provisions. One being very visible from the Cornwall side above the Tamar, and another one not yet built, sited on the ridge to the east of Bere Ferrers village, and will be very visible from the centre of Bere Ferrers. The West Devon plan, which was passed in the autumn, was encouraging business development and diversification of farms. In this particular case, this farm has been sold off in bits, and they have acquired the rump end. It wasn't attractive to other farmers around it, otherwise other farmers would have bought it. They are making a very sensible use of this farm and have gone down all the right streets in order to enhance the farm by encouraging diversity, public awareness, and have keyed in to the most important aspects of the future of some parts of agriculture. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Crozier. Anybody got any questions for Councillor Crozier? No, lovely. Thank you very much indeed. Yep. Okay. Any members, any further questions for the planning officer? I just have the one actually, which I forgot to bring before. In your report, on page 35, talks about Harling Farm comprising a temporary rural workers dwelling, and then describes all the associated parts of that. Just thinking about the cumulative impact. The temporary rural workers dwelling, which is presumably where the family live to run run the farm. when that temporary consent lapses, what would be the impact?
I think the family, I'm not completely 100% on this, but I think the family don't live in that. Is that right? Because I didn't do that application, so I'm not completely sure. But I had the impression that they lived in older buildings on the site, and that they had farm workers in that building. But in terms of cumulative impact, planning permission would have to be sought for any other development within the area.
Thank you. Yes, I appreciate we could only look at the application that's before us, but I was just sort of concerned about the whole area. So my apologies that I wasn't able to attend the site because I wasn't well. So I haven't got that context in the sense of any other buildings that might be present. Anybody else got any other questions at all? No? Okay, then to enable it to go into a debate, I will move the recommendation, which is conditional approval with the conditions are to be found at the report. I've got the page number in front of me. Conditions on page 54, 55 and 56 and part 57. Is there a seconder, please?
Happy to second, Chairman.
Thank you. Members, we're in debate. Right, Councillor Moyes, please.
Yes, I'll be supporting this application. I think the roof lights are very narrow and there are houses and other buildings nearby. I don't doubt the stables must have lights, and I don't think these would be particularly detrimental. I think such an application will be good to keep horses perhaps going there rather than trailing around narrow lanes, which is, as a horse rider I know, is not a good idea. The applicants seem to be very well organised and considerate and have done a good job on the rest of their development. So I've little doubt that they'll do the proper thing on this development.
Anybody else? Councillor Pearce.
Thanks, Chairman. This is a very difficult one for me, actually, decision. While it's commendable what the new owners of this farmstead have done, I do have concerns when you look at the number of planning applications that have come forward over the last 2 years, at the way that we appear to be nibbling away at the integrity of the area of outstanding natural beauty. And I know you've all said that the building won't be able to be seen, but I have to disagree. This is a significant shed, and it's 72 metres long, 22 metres wide, and I find it quite incredible, really, that we have to look at the balance of the harm within the ANOB and the benefit of having this facility there. We were told on site that it wouldn't be wholly for disabled riders, that there would be a significant amount of ordinary horse riders, I don't know a better way of putting it, actually, using a facility. So it is a private business, not a charity, as we've heard this morning, and not wholly for the use of disabled riders. It is a very difficult one, and I still haven't decided yet which way I'm going to vote, but I do have major concerns about the way that we are continually nibbling away at the areas of outstanding natural beauty, which should have high protection, and also our conservation areas. It's something that we're going to have to be very careful about. I'll rest my case there, actually, Chairman.
Okay, I've got Councillor Cheadle and Councillor Basham.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I fully understand Councillor Pearce's sort of direction of travel here, and I went through the same thought process myself. And I was interested in the debate about whether this should be classified as a major application or not. And I think there's a balance there. It could be, it was a judgment rather than a mathematical calculation, if I can put it that way. But had it been a major, it would have required exceptional circumstances to justify it. And in my mind, the provision of a disabled facility, riding facility, and the ability to allow a farm to diversify added together, in my mind, would have been justification for exceptional circumstances. So I share Councillor Pearce's view, but I shall support this application.
Thank you. Councillor Ashram.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I do have a few concerns that this is obviously a designated area of natural beauty. It's a very subjective thing, though. One person might think it's a beautiful area, and some people might not think it's a beautiful development. But this is a farming area. It's a working industry. It's a working environment, and we have to understand that. And there has to be some sort of development in those sort of areas to continue working in as that environment. I wasn't on the site visit, but I think her presentation was very good and gave me a very good impression of what it could look like. Obviously, the development will include protection from the views from the road, etc., and with hedges, and that will increase the wildlife biodiversity in that area. I'm quite happy that this proposal is looking at a facility which is quite. It's actually needed in the area, because I know the disability and well-being is not as well in place as it should be in other areas. So I'd welcome this. So I'd be in favour of this proposal. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay. Just to really advise members that if anybody is minded, and I would say this about any application, minded to vote against the officer recommendation, then you will need to have taken part in the debate and to explain your reasons why as to what the harm would be. Okay. Councillor Pearce, did you wish to speak again?
Well, I'll a question of the head of planning, actually. If this application is approved, could the condition be attached that in future time, if this building does not carry on being used for what it is being approved for now, it is removed? We have done this with other applications, and I feel that because of the sensitivity of the site, should at any time in the future that the barn is not, or this building is not used for an indoor arena, it is removed.
This is for Mr. Wyman or Mr. Faber.
Sorry?
They're looking at each other across the table.
If approved, and I'm not prejudging anything here, but if approved, then any alternative use would require planning permission other than, I believe, a non-livestock agricultural use, because an agricultural use is never development, whether it's use of land or building. So it could be used. So it could only be used for what's on the table now, or agricultural use. I think where you're coming from is if you've got a building that's put up under agricultural permitted development under Part 6 of the GDPO, if it then ceases to be used, then unless it gets a separate planning permission, it should be removed. My feeling is we probably couldn't put a condition on saying it should be removed, but I'm happy to defer to a legal colleague to see if he disagrees. It's not something I've come across where, other than permitted development, where there's a condition say you have to remove a building if it ceases to be used for that purpose.
I think inclined to agree with what the head of development management has said. I'm just trying to go through the tests for a valid planning condition in my head, and I can't. My instinctive feeling is that it doesn't comply with those requirements of necessity, reasonableness, enforceability, etc. So I'm inclined to say no, you can't impose that condition.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else wish to speak? No. Okay, then we will take this one to the vote. Just to remind members that it is a conditional approval as the conditions as described. All those in favour, please show.
That's 9-4, Chair,
Against?
and 1 against.
Abstentions? I think that's everybody. Okay, lovely. Thank you very much. So that is approved subject to conditions. Thank you. Okay. Yeah, okay. We obviously need to change the planning officer and check Ms. Hasland is really able to get into the building. She is here. So just bear with us for a few minutes, please. Thank you. everybody for your patience. Just while the planning officer is just fetching up her presentation, we will now move back to item A on the agenda, which is 0811-21-4, which is land, I think, in Green Lane, Yelverton. And apologies for anybody who's watching on the live stream that we've had to turn things around. It's not the planning officer's fault, but there was she was caught in traffic due to there being an accident. So we're just very glad that she has made it and got here. So they would take a deep breath and before we get going. So as and when you're ready, over to you.
Is that one?
Looks fine. You need to turn that mic when you start.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. Apologies for the delay caused by massive traffic jam. So I'm dealing with the application at Axtown Lodge, Green Lane, Yelverton. I just wanted to update the committee just first of all. There's a short sentence within the there was a sentence within the A and B units comments, which wasn't ended. But sorry. Is that better? Okay, sorry, thank you. And it was just a small addition to the sentence, which doesn't take away from the information that's been presented. So I just wanted to let you know.
Sorry, we still can't hear.
Oh, sorry. I think it's because I'm looking at my screen. If I move over here, would that be better?
I think it's when you turn and look at committee, so you're not talking to us.
Okay. Well, I'm not going to look at you then. I'm just going to go this way. Okay. So this is the application site. As you can just point her. Yeah. So this is the application site here. It's just off Green Lane, and you can see Axtown Farm to the north, and there's some dwellings up here which are known as Axtown. This is it on an aerial image, which again, this is the site here. This is a sand school, and there's a stable building just here. And this is the house known as the White House, which is the last house on Green Lane. Again, this is just showing the site of the proposed dwelling in red. This is just a couple of images now showing Green Lane, which is the lane off which the dwelling will be accessed. The access point is going to be roughly in this location here, into the proposed dwelling. This is Green Lane going the opposite